Hello, welcome back to my studio. If you're new, by the way, my name's Emma. I'm an illustrator based in Sheffield. These are my daily-ish vlogs. Today I'm going to be showing you some sketchbooks. Some newer, some less new, and some absolutely flipping ancient. This has come off the back of a question from one of you guys. You wanted to see a bit of a comparison between my more recent sketchbooks. So I've got some from September through to January, February. I won't show you February's, which is the current one, but there's like 2 sketches in it. So September through to January, I've got January 2023, which is when I started to change how I approached my sketchbooks. I started a new method of sketching in January 2023, which changed how I interacted with my sketchbooks, and I started to get a lot more out of them, and my work outside of my sketchbooks also started improving because of it. So I've got the start of the journey there, so you can see where I am now on that new interaction method with my sketchbooks, where I was when I started, and also where I was beforehand. And I think you'll see the difference. I did do one of these videos ages ago, but I think it's still nice to have a little review and see how far we've come. So let's get to it. So you might be wondering, what's changed and why change how you approach sketchbooks? Well, I didn't really understand what sketchbooks were for, and I think my view had been skewed by growing up with social media. Maybe not in my young formative years, but definitely since being an adult, going to university. There was that era of posing your art on social media. Not so much now, maybe, but definitely back in the day, where images were composed and people would either show their process or their finished piece, and it would be lovely, staged, flowers, art materials, neat, tidy. And inside the sketchbook would be a finished piece of art. I'd never been taught really how to use sketchbooks through school, even though the clue is in the name. I think there was too much pressure on the end result, especially with social media, which was pegged as this place where you interacted with the world, where you put yourself out there, and if your work wasn't perfect, people would think you weren't perfect. As is always the way with creative things, we wear our hearts on our sleeves, and somehow we tie up our worth with the end result of our art, which is ridiculous. You need to unpick this. And the way that I unpicked that was through timing my sketches. It's not something I came up with on my own. I heard about it through a group of ladies called the Good Ship Illustration. I'm not sponsored. I mention them all the time because they really have revolutionised my brain, how I think about sketching, how I interact with my own work, and how lightly I hold sketches. My work's definitely improved since implementing some of their techniques. So they had a free resource on their website called the Sketchbooker's Friend. It's still there as far as I know. If you head along to their website, which I'll pop in the video description, you can go and find that yourself. It's an audio guide which lasts, I don't know, 10 minutes long, not very long, and they basically talk you through how to time your sketches. And these are 3 women who have got careers in different areas of illustration. So they've got paid jobs, paid work, they're professionals in 3 different areas of illustration. They know what they're talking about. It was a free resource. I thought my sketchbooks aren't working as they are. I was too emotionally tied into them when I used sketchbooks in the way that I had been. I went into an emotional down spiral where I was tying my self-worth, like I said before, tying my self-worth with how I perceived and how other people perceived my sketches. So I thought, well, nothing else is working. I might as well give it a go. And I'm telling you, it revolutionised how I started to see my work. So let's start with my old sketchbooks. So I had sketchbooks. I've always had sketchbooks like knocking around since being a kid, but it's always where I just like did finished work. In 2006, I got this sketchbook. Now this sketchbook spans 10 years, 2006 to 2016. There's not that many pages in it. So you can see how little I actually sketched. And that's because of that downward spiral of emotions that I got from it. So I'd try something, it didn't work, I would get in a funk about it, and I'd not want to sketch because I was trying to protect my mental health. So in this sketchbook, I don't even know if you'll be able to pick it up on camera. I went in lightly in pencil and they're all right. I kept what I liked. So I did some mountains. Anything I didn't like, I either scribbled it out or ripped it out. Mountains, boulder. It's back when I was the height of my climbing. Boulder and Fontainebleau. At the museum gardens in York. Detailed. There's not an ounce of mess really in here. I mean, they're not hyper realistic. I wasn't going that far in terms of my finished work having to be perfect. I knew there was a certain sketchy element to it, but if it didn't work out, I stopped. The very next page is testament to that. I just scribbled it out. So there was that pressure. There is that pressure to do things perfectly. I've got this here. There's a landscape here, and on this page it says work on the eyes. There's no eyes in that landscape. What happened here, I was drawing someone, it didn't work, I ripped it out and threw it away. I started a drawing, I stopped it because it didn't go right. There was a little bit of experimentation. So I was trying to work on a more illustrative style, because at this point in my career at this point, 2006, I was doing more realistic landscapes, and that's kind of how I started with my small business Embers and Ink. I was doing realistic landscapes, I really liked them, but in this time I wanted to start working on illustrations because I knew there was an idea for writing something about my cat, which eventually turned into Our Dave. And you can see here I've tried different things. So I've tried different eyes, different noses. Basically what I'm doing here is seeing how other people do cartoons and trying to take bits of that and put it into my drawing, which it's not the worst way of doing it, but you'll see later on my mindset changed about that. This is 2016. 2016. I was trying to put how other people draw on my work. And I think that could only work for so long. I now see my drawing, my sketching, as the handwriting version of my drawing. And I think like back in 2016, when I was taking how other people do it and putting it on my work, it's like when you try and write in someone else's handwriting, you might be very good at mimicking it, but there's only so long you can pretend for. There's only so long you can pretend to be someone else before your handwriting style comes out. And it might be messy, it might be super neat, it might be very swirly, it might be not joined up, but you can only copy things for so long before the real you wants to start coming out. And I think that's why I used to stop so much, because I was looking for my style from over there, from someone else. I was looking for it, like, where is it? Can I find it? Like, is it in here? When really it's in here. And I think that the difference between where I was then and where I am now is that I realised through the process of timing my sketches, my dissatisfaction was because there was always a juxtaposition between what I was trying to do and what I could do. And I'll explain in a minute why timed sketches has helped. It might not help you, but oh man, it really did help me a lot. So you can see how, again, I was doing, how can I do eyes? How can I do this? How can I do that? Rather than just practicing it. Seeing how other people do eyeballs. And then I stopped for a really long time. So this is 2016. There was not another sketchbook until 2018. I had been buying sketchbooks. This is a Moleskine sketchbook. So I've been buying quite expensive sketchbooks, but just leaving them empty. In 2018, I decided something needs to change because I'm not sketching. In 2018, I decided to go in and block pages with colour to stop me being so precious. And I think I was getting to the right, I was getting along the right road, I think. I was starting to become a little bit more scribbly, a bit more loose, a bit more expressive, but I was still tied into the end result has to be good. And the pressure of an expensive sketchbook didn't really help with that, because I felt if I made a mess, I'm like, well, this page cost like £2. I can't make a mess in this sketchbook. So this became a place where I became increasingly tidy and neat. I've done some really nice work in here, actually. So I'm enjoying the tonal work of these seagulls. These were done from photographs. I was not yet good at making sketches from life. But I did some really nice work, and I'm not going to lie about that. There's nothing wrong with a bit of patting yourself on the back, especially this one. I thought that was really nice. But can you see how it's very neat, very tidy? I'm going to have a visitor in a second. Hi. I don't know if he's in shot, but my cat Rolly has just come up. Hi, what's this? What do you think about my sketchbooks? Huh? Did I poke you in the eye then? I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to. So yeah, they're pretty neat and tidy. Then there was a gap, and then I once again tried to draw in someone else's style. Here, I remember when I was trying to do like cartoons and illustrations again, I tried to work in Axel Scheffler's style. You can see in the eyes, I had spent a lot of time not copying to be breaking copyright, but in my sketches to try and get in the head of an illustrator. I remember I was doing this. You'll probably find a video somewhere on YouTube where I was talking about what I was doing. To try and get into the head of being an illustrator, I chose Axel Scheffler, and I just took a page in a bigger sketchbook. Where did that go? Or maybe it was loose paper. I remember it being big paper, and just going through one of Axel Scheffler's books and copying all the people. And that's when I decided, oh, I'm going to do my eyes and my nose like that. So again, I was searching for my style externally. This is interesting, actually, this one. So this one is 2019. February and March 2019, and I was drawing in the Sheffield Winter Gardens. So I think this shows the struggle that was going on inside my brain. So here is me drawing two people in the Winter Gardens, and I drew them in a style with the big round eyes, the nose coming down off the eye. It's not like a mega copying Axel Scheffler. It was just influenced by how he did it. But then a couple of days later, I sketch a person in the Winter Gardens, and it's not like that. This is more like how I sketch now. So there was that duality going on, like how I'd chosen I was going to do it versus how my hand and brain wanted to do it. And when you are constantly flip-flopping between this is how I think I should be doing it and this is how I want to do it, you don't get any consistency. You don't see any kind of consistency in your work. And I don't think it does very well for your brain. There are some really nice bits in here, actually. I got quite into watercolours. So these oyster mushrooms that I did, get a bit more expressive, but it doesn't last like very long. I'm still here. I've tried to add some pen to it and then didn't add pen to it. I am remembering feeling uncertain about which way should I go. So I'm just trying lots of things, grasping at straws. None of it is bad. I'm not saying any of it's bad. It's just, hey you, stop it. That's my life with a cat, hey. Yeah, I'm not saying any of it's bad. I'm just saying I was coming at my style, get off that, I was coming at my style from outside rather than from inside. I don't know if you can see from those that I had a problem with being messy, but I did. The next sketchbooks are 2020. 2020. First one is Inktober and the other two are sketchbooks. And I think you'll agree that there's very little mess in here. So let's have a look. So Inktober, if you don't know, is an online challenge where you get a prompt for each day of October and you draw something. It's kind of a nice challenge to get you drawing, the activity of drawing. Because sometimes you can get stuck in your own head and you've got no reason to draw, so you don't. So Inktober is quite good for that. But I think you'll be able to tell mess was not my objective. I think also because I was definitely going to be sharing these on Instagram. Everything neat and tidy. I'm not saying that's bad. They're just very neat. There was a lot of stress around these drawings and getting them looking nice and neat, because if I went one line the wrong way, yeah, if I went one line the wrong way, I was worried that I could ruin the piece. There you go, and then that's empty at the end. So there was a lot of stress in the neat, tidy drawings. I didn't enjoy the process. I enjoyed it when the end result turned out neat and tidy, but the process I didn't enjoy. And I think I enjoyed the end result being neat and tidy because I was wanting an imaginary person who might walk by and look over my shoulder to go, oh yeah, you can draw. So I wasn't really drawing for me. I was drawing to prove that I could draw to an imaginary person who didn't exist. Anything that wasn't neat and tidy, I either ripped out or erased. I like them, I really like them. But the process was not enjoyable. The end result was enjoyable, but the process was stressful. So another 2020. This was practice at hand. Neat, tidy. Fine, I like it. I like neat and tidy. I do. But you'll see later on, it's not really where I'm at now. I really like the end result. I do. Could I replicate it consistently? Probably not. This was my attempt at finding a style, and I remember really liking at that time the line outline and a shaded inside. Like, remember Fashion Wheel as a kid, where you'd have images underneath and then you'd do like a rubbing over the top and you could choose different tops for the end. Anyway, you maybe don't remember. It reminds me of Fashion Wheel. Nice, neat, tidy, and it is nice. I like it. But I do remember the process wasn't enjoyable. Again, I was drawing to share on social media, so people went, wow, you are neat and tidy, you can draw. And you've got to remember, at this time, I wasn't drawing from life. I was spending a long time from photographs drawing this. And I think if I were to use like one of these as a character in a book at this time, I wouldn't have had the skills to draw them in different positions accurately. Because I was drawing from photographs, I wasn't observing them. I was looking at where the line corresponds to the other line and corresponds to the foot, to the ankle, to the leg. Does this look in proportion? I wasn't well practiced at observing from life. So even though these are neat and tidy, and you might think, why did you change? I needed to, because I could only draw from photographs, which is fine. there's no right or wrong way to do things. This is something I want to let you know. There isn't a right or wrong way to sketchbook. But what I'm trying to point out is my journey, because I felt there was a right way to do it, and whatever I was doing to get to that right way of sketching wasn't producing a healthy mindset, because these took a long time. I like the end result, but my end result, my happiness at the end result was linked to them looking a way that I thought other people wanted to see. And when they didn't turn out like that, my perception of my self-worth was tied to that. If it didn't turn out well, I was rubbish, and that's not healthy. So I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way to do it. I'm just saying I feel like I've got a much healthier relationship with my sketchbooks now. And I think before we move on, I need a cup of coffee, because not only are my neighbours having a good old chinwag outside, which you can probably hear, it's nice to have a little break in between two things, just so I'm not talking at you like a lecture. This isn't a lecture. Let's just get a coffee. So 2023 comes around and I've drawn very little since 2020. And yes, I can draw from photographs. Very neat, we've established this. Not very good at drawing from life, and I'm not getting that good feeling from sketching that I do now. I feel like it should be neat and tidy for that imaginary person who might look over my shoulder and think that I can't draw if I'm doing something scribbly. And it's tied into my self-worth. If I do something that's messy, that's scribbly, that doesn't turn out right, then I've tied the end result into me being good or bad. So everything is super neat. My end results I'm happy with, but the process I'm not happy with. And the end results that don't turn out good, I don't show anyone, I rip out, I throw out, and start that downward spiral. So that's where we are. And then I hear about the Good Ship Illustrations timed sketch thing. So, like I said before, it was their sketchbook, Sketchbooker's Friend over on their website, a free resource, and it was good, but I think it was heartening that it wasn't a well-polished audio. It was obviously something that they'd filmed during lockdown to get people drawing from their household stuff. So the fact that these three professionals in the illustration industry were showing us very simply how to do sketchbook work with an audio quality audio talk through that wasn't amazing. It just felt really human, really humble, really like real, if you know what I mean. So I gave that a go because, like, what else could I do? Nothing else was working. I needed a different approach to my sketchbooks. So in this walkthrough, they tell you to open a drawer or a cupboard. I chose my art drawer, my like messy art drawer, with like supplies and things in that I was using for my small business. So they would time you. The first drawing was going to be 30 seconds, just get down what you can. The second drawing was going to be a brand new drawing, but for a minute of the same thing. And then the next one was going to be a brand new drawing and they'd give you 5 minutes. And then there was 10 minutes, the same draw at 10 minutes. I can honestly say that I didn't like my drawings when I did them, because to me, they were messy and scribbly, and nobody will know that I can draw if they can see these. But looking back on them now, I really love them. So let me just show you what I did. This was my draw for 30 seconds, and that's what I got. I basically got the outline of the draw in 30 seconds. There's no wrong or right way to do it, but now I could get a lot more down in 30 seconds. And that's because I have practiced observing. I wasn't very good at seeing. I didn't know what to look at. I didn't know how to convert it into useful stuff in my brain that I can then draw. I wasn't good at observing at all. The next one was a minute, same draw, 1 minute. There's a bit more. But again, I'd started to realise after the end of this 1 minute, I am not very good at observing things. So the 5 minute draw is that one. Same draw, a lot more detail. And this is the first time as well that I just grabbed coloured pencils. I didn't want this to be precious. I knew that me holding it too tightly or putting too much pressure on the end result, I knew that it was killing my creativity. So I knew at this point something had to give. So I just grabbed materials that were around, and it happened to be just coloured pencils. And that's something I've taken into my later sketchbooks. I no longer draw in graphite like I used to. I draw in coloured pencils, and I'm much better at observing. So the 10-minute drawing is this. And bear in mind, I didn't like this. Don't go thinking that I started doing observational sketching and it instantly improved my relationship with drawing and it instantly improved my drawing. It didn't. I hated seeing my messy hand in my sketches. But at this point in my journey, nothing else was working for me. So I thought, if nothing else, I will keep doing this and I will get better at observing. If nothing else, I will become better at observing. So I stuck with the process, and it's sticking with the process that has got me to a place where I'm so much more confident in drawing and so much better at observing, so much better at quickly sketching, and so much better at translating these sketches into finished work. This was the start of big things for me. So this was the 10-minute drawing of the same draw. And I remember looking at this thinking, no, it looks like a kid's done it. No, I don't like it. Because I had been drawing like this. The difference was wild. But really, when I look back at these very first time sketches, that's the first time, probably since I was a very young child, that I had seen my handwriting version of my drawing. I think all of these sketchbooks, I had been trying to write in someone else's handwriting. And it was obviously not sitting with me because it was jarring with how I normally write. Obviously, I'm talking about drawing, not writing. But I think when people talk about style, there's, in my opinion, I think there's a miscommunication. I think people look at style and think you've got to pick one. But I think your style's already there. It's like your handwriting. You don't pick a handwriting. I mean, sure, yeah, you get taught how to do handwriting and you might get taught cursive handwriting at school. There is a style in there which has been taught, but you wouldn't get people who are professionals at comparing handwriting if there wasn't something of you in your handwriting. So yeah, you might write cursive, you might write in a way that your teachers taught you to, but your interpretation of that is there for everyone to see in your handwriting. You compare your handwriting to your classmates' handwriting at school. You were taught in the same way, but you can tell whose is yours and whose isn't. And it's the same with your drawing, I think. And just because I've become a lot looser in my sketches and a lot more scribbly. I've embraced my scribble. Just because I have doesn't mean that you do. Your natural handwriting version of your drawing might be super neat. You might be able to get really lovely, neat, tidy drawings observationally. You might be able to do something like this, nice and tidy, naturally. And you might have, you might not have the same journey as me. This is how I've done it. Just because I've gone more messy and loose and scribbly doesn't mean you have to. What you need to do is give yourself that mental space to find what comes naturally to you. So yeah, I hated that at the time. But like I said, I knew after this one exercise, 20 minutes or whatever, I knew I wasn't good at observing. From the first 30 seconds, I knew I wasn't good at observing. So I thought, even though I hate the end result, at least I'm going to get practice observing. So I stuck to it religiously. 30 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. 30 seconds, 1 minute. I took it to work and did some sketching. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And at those days I used to actually time it. Now I just draw quickly. If I find myself noodling too much, I stop and I start it and draw quickly again. I've got my internal time has got a lot better, and I know when I'm starting to overwork things now. But back in the early days, I used to actually set a timer on my phone, and that's all I'd do. One thing I found really useful was splitting my page up. So I'd do the 2 quick ones here and spend a longer time here. So 30 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes. And I was drawing people here, and I was trying to get better at observing real life people and drawing quickly from life, which it does, my ego did take a battering, but because timing my sketches worked, because I wasn't given enough time to think, what style am I going to draw this in? I just had enough time to draw it, right? So that's why I ended up with this. That's the first time I'd ever seen my handwriting version of my drawing. It's the first time I'd ever just drawn and hadn't had time to think, how am I going to do this? What illustration style should I use? This is me. I just drew it. I had 30 seconds, minute, 5 minute, whatever, to get as much down as I could. It was a game. So even though my ego still took a bashing, because I realised I wasn't good at observing people from life, because it was the game of, it doesn't matter how it ends up, just get as much down as you can. I mean, I even kept writing. I think I was still kind of drawing for that imaginary person who might have walked by and seen what I was doing and thought I couldn't draw, because I'd write 30 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes. So that imaginary person would go, oh, she's timing her sketches. That's quite a lot for 30 seconds. But, whatever works. This worked for me because it made it into a game. I had no time to think about how I was going to draw it. I just had time to draw it. So let's have a look. 30 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minute. I even overlaid, this person moved the newspaper. I overlaid how they moved in that 5 minutes. And I've written here, this man kept moving his newspaper. Also, people kept walking in the way. So let's just see how it went. And this is the first time I'd ever really observed people properly from life for an extended amount of time. And it's the first time I'd observed people and tried to draw them without being concerned about the end result. Because I was focusing on the time, I wasn't concerned about how it looked. I was just trying to squeeze as much as I could into that time. And I was using materials that I hadn't used before. I'd accumulated them over the years and never got around to using them. So again, in my head, if nothing else, I'm getting good at observing and I'm getting these materials actually used up. I'm not wasting my money, finally. So I kept on. Overworked. So I was beginning to be a bit more playful. I knew when I was starting to go work too much on something. Cats are tricky. This is me being kind to myself and writing notes. Stop drawing what you think they look like and start drawing what's there. Cats are harder than you think. 2 minutes with him obviously moving in between. So timing my sketches was this one. I think that would have been 5 minutes. If I haven't put a timer on it, I've probably done 5 minutes. So I started taking my sketchbooks everywhere, which, going from a person who only used to draw from photographs and only used to use my sketchbook in my studio, it felt really liberating, finally having a reason to take my sketchbooks out and having the tools of the timed sketching as a way to start me using my sketchbooks out more. So this one, it says, waiting for Andy. So Andy was shopping. So I drew the street in front of me while he was there. Again, I decided not to go into the shops and I drew what was there. There wasn't anything very interesting. It was just bins, but it's all practice. Get as much done as I can while it's in the shop. A bin. I think these were taken from photos actually, because I know where this bin is. Isn't that funny that I know where a bin is? This is on my way home from the shops. So I probably snapped some shots. This is on my way to the shops. And these are people. I remember snapping these. So I could draw them against the clock. So I'm still drawing from photographs. Drawing from photographs isn't a bad thing, guys. I'm not saying that it is. It's just before I drew exclusively from photographs and I wasn't very good. Well, I had never had any practice at drawing from life. So, you know, I don't rule out drawing from photographs. It's just, now I hold it a lot more lightly than I used to. Oh, I also, you can tell in this sketchbook, this is the second one since, my second sketchbook since drawing against the clock. And you can see I'm almost, well, if you don't count Inktober, in 1 month, I've got more than 2020 in sketchbooks. In this book, you can see that I've started to, this was overworked and I know that, but you know, you've got to give yourself a break. These are from photographs, but against the clock. This is from life and that's from life against the clock. But you can see that I'm starting to use my sketchbooks almost like a visual diary, visual journal of what I did. So this says, view from the cafe, interrupted by breakfast. I drew my mum on Zoom, on FaceTime, whatever. I drew people. These are, I was experimenting with materials. So this is a dip pen and highlighters, just making mess. I was getting comfortable making mess. And it's not necessarily about the mess, but it's, I was getting used to my sketchbooks being a place where I could have fun and just play around. And I wasn't bothered anymore about that imaginary person who in my head is a man looking over my shoulder saying you can't draw. I didn't care. I was practicing and playing and I was having fun for me, not for that person. So this is Helen Stevens. This is Katie Chappell from the Good Ship Illustration, and they were on Zoom and I was practicing drawing them. Drawing from life, I started drawing television programs, so that's kind of like a really good middle ground that I found. If you don't want to go out and about sketching, draw from the telly and just don't pause. Just try and draw quickly from telly. So that's what I started doing on Netflix. That's my sofa. Quick sketches. I realised that orange and blue was my thing. Again, not thinking how I'm doing it, just doing it. These are people from life, quickly from life. I'm just starting to embrace a little bit of play. I started inks, getting splodgy, sitting with the discomfort of it not being neat and tidy and perfect. The difference. I'm not saying this is better. I'm just saying this as a learning tool now is becoming more enjoyable. I'm having fun, I'm experimenting, I'm playing with different textures. These are sticks that I picked up in the woods. Thick stick, thin stick, pine cones, small twigs, pine needles, all put together. Just to play and have a play around. So that's the second one in January 2023. And this is the third one in January 2023. This is a Zoom session. I mean, they're quite scary drawings, but quick on Zoom. And then out of the woods, dogs at a cafe in the woods. I don't know if I'm actually timing these ones, but you'll know it yourself if you've tried to draw animals. You don't get time to really sit and look. They move a lot anyway, so I was just trying to draw them quickly. This is just quick sketches. Some photographs. Netflix. So doing the same scene, a little less time and more time. You get the idea. You get the impression. So they were my sketches from the beginning of my journey, 2023. Do you want to see my most recent sketchbook? Well, that's my most recent sketchbook, but like I said, there's a couple of sketches in there. I'll show you the last sketchbook of January, and I've actually went through, in fact, all of January, I went through and I've taped up some pages just to show you as a comparison. So I think you'll agree, let's just say this, I think you'll agree that some of my drawings have really taken on another level. So that one, two people talking. It's messy and scribbly, yeah. You can tell it's been done quickly, but there is resemblance to the actual person there. And I'm not trying to draw in any kind of way. I'm still doing the same process of getting as much done as I can. If we compare that to the people that I was drawing. The people that I was drawing at the start of 2023. In 5 minutes, I can get a bunch more detail down now because I'm better at observing, because I've had all of that time to practice. I've held the end result lightly, so the end result no longer affects my mood and my psyche. So yeah, I get some pages that I'm pretty proud of. You know, that imaginary person standing on my shoulder, I could be like, hey, look at that, I can draw. Not that I do that anymore. There are some pages where less detailed, but I've got the movement of people standing in different positions, moving on. Something about them, a little je ne sais quoi. That one, this person was leaning around, looking at a shelf in a shop, drawn from life. Something about it, je ne sais quoi. I don't know, I can't put my finger on it. It feels like my handwriting version. It looks like my handwriting, if I'm honest. It looks like my handwriting. But full transparency, I have pages where I just draw a single thing. And maybe, I think that's a kid, I remember drawing that as a kid. Maybe they moved or they went off with their parent and I couldn't draw them again. This is a tram. Whatever, I ended up with that. That's what I got. I didn't feel like adding any more, so I didn't. These are drawing animals at the farm. They kept moving around. I got what I could. I held it lightly. They're not all finished results. Sometimes they're even less. Just a swirl of a duck's head shape. And that, I felt content enough to leave that page there. No longer do I feel like if I don't end up with a full scene, I'm failing. I'm not. This is all practice. It's valuable practice. So within these sketchbooks, there is a mix between less finished and more finished. And I hold them with exactly the same weight. Granted, some things like this make me feel a little bit more like, oh yeah, that. Oh, it's something about that. I really like it. But my other sketches, I don't hold them in a negative space. They're all valuable. That's the word I'm looking for. The light is really bad. I'm really sorry. They're all valuable. So some are more detailed, some are less detailed. Something I've found, like something in my brain's unlocked recently, is side profiles. I'm not saying I'm amazing at them, but something in my head has recently gone, yes, give that a go. So yeah, now I hold, like I said, I hold finished and less finished in the same space because they're all serving a purpose. Let me just show you some other spot pages from the other ones because I still need to do a sketchbook tour for my patrons. Over Christmas, drew one of my mum's ornaments. Just dead quick. There's something about it, just something. I'm not trying to draw in a style. It's just this is what comes out because I'm not trying to draw in a style. It's my handwriting version. You don't think about how you're going to write your name when you write your name. You just write it and that's your handwriting. This is my handwriting drawing. So again, some more finished ones, some less finished ones, some more finished ones, some less finished ones, some more finished ones. Really like this one. I feel like I'm also getting better at capturing people's natural movements. Even though that woman didn't stay sitting like this, I felt like I was good at sketching what I could before she moved and holding that image in my head and finishing the bits off from memory. that I could not do that, definitely, in 2023. I couldn't hold that kind of stuff in my head. But yeah, less finished. Let me just go and shut my window because my neighbours are chatting again. So definitely now I feel more comfortable with seeing my own handwriting version on the page. For me, that is naturally scribbly. And it's interesting, I think I mentioned this in the last video as well. I've definitely mentioned it in other places. When I was doing one of the wood chip courses, I'm not going to reveal too much information, don't worry. I don't want to, undermine the course. One of the parts of the course just got you like kind of deep diving into your relationship with sketches, like memories and not even with your artwork, just memories from your childhood, things that you might be able to draw on to help bulk out your, I don't know, your perception of yourself. Like, remember who you are and try and put that in your drawing. So that was part of the course. One thing that came from that kind of, I suppose you'd call it a deep dive into my memories, was a memory from when I was in Unit 3, so that's year 5 of primary school. So that's the third year in the junior school, and showing my teacher, Mr. White, my work, and him saying, your work is too messy, it's too scribbly, and you need to tidy up. You need to draw more like this person here. Let's call them, I don't know, Sandra, because there definitely wasn't a Sandra in my class, so people won't think I'm talking about them. And this person, Sandra, drew super neat. They drew almost to the point of being anal, right? Nothing wrong with that, but they'd get a pen or a pencil, and rather than colouring it in, they'd draw one line top to bottom next to it, top to bottom next to that, top to bottom next to that. So you wouldn't have any of the overlap of the pencils. Not like how I do. Like I colour it in and the overlap makes the dark big. I wasn't concerned about being so neat. But at that time, I was told, this is not good. This is not good. How you do it is not good. And you need to draw more like this person. Super neat is good. How you do it isn't good. And that moment, I hadn't realised it until I'd looked back as an adult. That moment had shaped how I interacted with my art. That's why I had such negative spirals in my moods when I didn't draw neat. So this was the sum of my sketchbooks between, This was the sum of my sketchbooks between 2006 and 2020. Now I get that in a couple of months. Because as soon as it started to become a bit scribbly, a bit messy, it was bad. And I'd internalised that from being, how old would I have been? 8, maybe. And I know he probably didn't intend that to have such a long-lasting impact on me as it actually did. He was probably just wanting a tidy book for the headmaster's book review of all of his class's work. He was probably having exactly the same conversation in his head that I was as an adult. This imaginary person looking over my shoulder. I was imagining people critiquing my work. He was imagining them critiquing his class. If his class's work are all messy, what's that going to say about his teaching style? We've all got burdens to bear. But yeah, looking back, that was a big part in my interaction and my development and my thought processes around art. Neat and tidy equals good. Messy, loose, scribbly equals bad. And it took me until 2023, so I was 40, 32 years. It only took me 32 years to unpick that and think, no, actually, my original way of doing it, it was right. It was bang on. There's nothing wrong with the way that whatever her name was, Sandra or whatever it was, did it. That was their way of doing it. Fine. That's right for them as well. There's no right or wrong way to do art. And by telling kids the way you do it is wrong, no good can come from that. So now I embrace my scribble. If you did the same journey as me, you may end up with something super neat, super tidy. You might be one of those people who does hyper-realistic drawings. You might be super minimal. You'd be doing it your way. I refound my scribbly messy hand, which it delights me now. I'm so happy. I hope this has answered your questions or kind of scratched that itch for you, wondering how I used to do it, how I do it now. And I'm not saying how I do it now is the pinnacle that everyone should be aspiring to. I'm saying I'm content with how I do things. And how I sketch now doesn't just help my sketchbooks. I now take that looseness into my finished pieces, into my finished work. And I've only really been able to do that the last 6 months and feel comfortable with finished results, with finished illustrations that weren't super neat. So that's also part of the journey, but I feel like I'm just feeling comfortable in the way of doing it. You know, like when you buy a new pair of jeans or you wash your jeans and your first few wears of the jeans, they're really tight. And then you wear them for a few days and you start to feel comfortable in them. Bit looser, they're a bit stretched and a bit more formed to your body. I feel like that's where I'm at with my finished drawings. So I might be pushing this analogy too far. So my sketchbooks are now, I'm so comfortable in those. These are a comfortable pair of pajamas that I wear all the time. My sketchbooks. My finished pieces are now, my finished illustrations are now starting to feel a bit more like a new pair of jeans that I feel nice and comfortable and worn in. So I'm getting there, guys. It's always going to be a journey. But I think one thing I've learned from 2006 to now is how you do it is good. You might need a lot of unpicking because life will probably have told you how you do things is not good. Life likes to put people in boxes. Society likes to put people in boxes. But the U-shaped box is good enough. And it's taken me a long time to finally admit that. Like I say, over 30 years, in fact. But gee, it feels good. It feels good. I feel finally comfortable in my own skin, in my own drawing style. So I hope that's helped. Hope you've enjoyed it. I'll put the links to the Sketchbooker's Friend audio guide that started off this whole journey for me in the video description, so you can go and check that out for yourself. It might not work for you like it did for me. Your journey will be your journey. It'll be different to mine, but that's okay. Even if for nothing else, like I said to myself at the beginning, even if nothing else, it might get you better at observing stuff. I mean, that's got to be something, if nothing else. You might not end up at the same place that I am, feeling comfortable with my work. You might not end up there in the same kind of time frame as I do. You might get there quicker, you might get there less quick. You might already be comfortable with how you do it, and that's fine. We're all different. Just hold it lightly. Wherever the journey takes you is right. Just start accepting you for you and get comfortable with seeing your handwriting version of your drawing. That's my tip. Anyway, I'm going to leave this video here because I've probably rambled for a good long time now. I hope it's been all right. Let me know in the comments if you've enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up. All of these things help me reach other people just like you. And if this is your first time of joining me, not all of my videos are this long, so don't worry. If you want to join me for the rest of my journey, feel free to drop a subscribe. No obligation. I'm not here to tell you what to do. But I'm going to leave this video here. So hopefully I will catch you in the next one. Fingers crossed. So until then, bye.